Let's hear from President Macron.
Je me tiens devant vous avant que ne commence la liturgie
I stand here in front of you
pour vous dire la
before
gratitude
the liturgic event begins to express the gratitude of the French nation.
à l'égard de
A
tous
gratitude to all those who saved, who rescued, who helped and rebuilt Our Lady of Paris, Notre-Dame de Paris. Our gratitude towards all those that
au
are
moment où nous nous
present
apprêtons à la rendre
at this time when we are about to give it back to the Catholics, back to Paris, back to France and back to the whole world.
Ce soir, les cloches de Notre-Dame
Yes,
sonnent à nouveau.
indeed, today once again the bells of Notre-Dame ring out again.
Musique d'espérance,
And
familière
soon
aux
the
Parisiens,
grand
à
organ
la
will
France et au
too.
monde.
This is a music of hope, familiar to Parisians, to France and the world. The bells of Notre-Dame
Ont scandé
ring out again.
les heures du jour et celles de l'histoire.
The bells that rang out, the hours of the day and those of
Comme elles ont
history.
sonné pour les 11 rois
They
qui ont vu cette
ring
cathédrale.
as they rang for the 11 kings that saw this cathedral stand tall, for Saint Louis, who came back from the Orient, for Henri IV, who was making the nation better after the wars of religion, for Louis XIV, for Louis XVI, for Napoleon, who crowned himself emperor here himself in 1804, for Victor Hugo, who stood here dreaming up looking for the shadow of Quasimodo in the cloisters, for Paul Claudel,
Un soir de décembre
who
1886,
came back here for hope, an evening
pour
of
annoncer aux résistants de
1966
Paris l'arrivée du général Leclerc et des siens,
tell the
célébrer
residents
la
of Paris
libération
about
aux
the
côtés du
coming
général
of
de Gaulle,
General de Clerc in
aux
Paris,
adieux de la France, à ses génies, à ses soldats, à ses grands
as
hommes.
de Gaulle bid farewell to as a farewell to the great men of
Elles
history.
qui ont accompagné notre
Yes,
histoire.
these bells ring out. They accompanied our history.
Nous aurions pu ne jamais réentendre
However,
cette voix.
we may have never heard these voices ring out
15 avril
again.
2019,
On the 15th of April,
la nouvelle de l'incendie a
2019,
couru de lèvre en
news
lèvre.
of the fire
Les images de flammes
ran
dévorant
through
le transept,
the city and the world.
la flèche
The
qui
image
vacille
of fire going through the transept,
dans un
the
fracas
image
d'ossements.
of this spire
et ces heures de
collapsing
combat.
in a sound of broken bones.
La décision de lui laisser
And
sa part et ces minutes désespérées où tout pouvait partir,
Anything
la pierre, le
could
bois,
have been
les
destroyed
vitraux,
at that
disparaître.
moment. The wood, the stones, the stained glass could have disappeared at that moment.
Il s'est trouvé des étudiants
During
qui sont
those
venus de la montagne
hours,
Sainte-Geneviève
there were students who came down from the Sainte Geneviève hill nearby in order to sing
Times Square pour s'arrêter en
songs.
larmes devant les premières images.
And people stood in Times Square in front of the images
Des
of
croyants de partout
this
venus se
fire
réunir
in
devant nos
tears.
ambassades.
And people came from
Des chameliers,
all around the world to meet in front of our embassies, camel herders from the Niger who came and prayed for Notre-Dame in their own faith. On that
heures et malheurs étaient
evening
mêlés. L'enchaînement de malchance,
was
le
a
vent
moment
d'est qui s'est levé au pire
of
moment,
tragedy
poussant les flammes vers le beffroi nord, et l'enchaînement
that
de coïncidences.
pushed the fires to the northern
Certains
belfry.
appelleront hasard, d'autres destin.
Some people will put this down to providence, hope, or accident, but among everything else, there was bravery that day. The bravery of those firefighters and their
Envoyés pour une dernière
leaders
tentative, plus
who
dangereuse
sent
encore
them
que les
for a
autres.
last attempt that was more dangerous than the previous ones. These men who climbed up the facade in order to stop the 16 bells from collapsing and pulling down the entire cathedral with them. At 2200 hours for 47, at 10:47, this message was sent out
Pompiers reprenaient l'avantage,
that
et
the
ils n'eurent cette nuit
firefighters had taken their advantage and that there were no deaths that night. Towards midnight, we opened the large door, the large gate.
le transept effondré.
The spire was there no longer. The transept had collapsed, and The flows of water were dripping everywhere, flowing everywhere. There was a smell, an acrid smell, and the cross and the Pietà was lying there, but the Virgin was standing there intact, untouched, immaculate, just a few meters away from the collapsed spire of the cathedral. Notre-Dame of Paris, Our Lady of Paris, was saved, disfigured, yes, but rescued by the bravery and the courage of these men. And so this is when these minutes started ticking, when anything could have changed. We could have given into sadness and desolation of never seeing the cathedral as it had stood before. And then the shock of realizing that Notre-Dame of Paris could disappear, and realizing as well that our very cathedrals are mortal. And so we decided to hope. We decided to follow our willpower. We decided to rebuild Notre-Dame of Paris more beautiful than it was before in 5 years. We fought back thanks to our will and thanks to an unprecedented fraternity. We managed to carry this out. A fraternity that brought together people on all continents, people from all countries and all classes, who were brought together by these walls. The fraternity as well of the different artisans and companions here who met to work here under the direction of General Georges Rollin, for whose memory I spare a thought today, a moved thought. There was this fraternity of the scaffolding workers, the electricians, the lumberjacks, the woodworkers, the stone masons, the founders, the locksmiths, the polishers, all the artisans working the page, sculptors, the restorers of sculptures and paintings, the glass-working masters, archaeologists, engineers, researchers, historians, conservators, art historians, architects, and so many other professions besides. Yes, these women and these men, over 5,000 of them over the course of the last 5 years, added their name to the long list of those who since the 13th century had built this cathedral, rebuilding the forest of Notre-Dame, this forest of 2,000 oak beams, and then rebuilding the spire as well as an identical copy of the one that had been there before. And this showed that we still had the will of building grand designs and being able to preserve and continue the legends that had been passed down through the centuries. And so for 5 years, all these men and women was a necessary actor of this rebuilding of the cathedral. We needed these efforts coming from all around the world. Every gesture was necessary, and it brought together the grandeur of this cathedral and the excellence of all these jobs. We rediscovered what great nations could do, that they could make the impossible come true. This cathedral thus became the metaphor, the happy metaphor of what a nation is and what the world should be. A fraternity, a solidarity of people who are determined to make something bigger than themselves. A universal fraternity and helping each other. Notre-Dame tells us that our dreams, even the most ambitious and audacious ones, are only possible thanks to the commitment of each and every one of us. This cathedral reminds us that we have inherited a past that is greater than us and that could disappear any day. And that we are the players, the actors of an era that has to be transmitted to further down the line. Our cathedral speaks of transcendence and helps us live and inhabit this world. It allows us to transmit and
Tel est le sens
hope.
de ce travail.
This is the meaning
et de notre
of
présence
the
ce
work
soir.
that was carried out here in our presence here
Nous
this evening.
inscrivons à notre tour
We,
dans ce cortège de belles
as well, add our name to
nous
this
révélant à nous-mêmes
long
face à
list of
l'adversité.
builders, and we reveal ourselves in the face of adversity.
Les cloches sont sonnées,
The bells have rung out.
l'orgue va
The
s'éveiller.
organ, the pipe organ will
Fidèles, bientôt,
awaken soon, and the
viendront
faithful will also follow and come and pray here. The world will find this cathedral rebuilt and built more beautiful
Il nous faudra
and
garder
embellished.
comme un trésor
And
cette leçon de
we
fragilité,
will have to remember this lesson of fragility, humility, and
et n'oublier jamais
of
combien chacun
our
compte.
strong willpower. And we should never forget how each one of us counts and how
Du
the
travail de tous.
grandeur of this capital is inseparable from the efforts of each and every one of us. Today,
Nous pouvons
together,
partager la joie.
we can share the joy and the pride.
Monseigneur, Notre-Dame de Paris vous est redonnée.
Your
Ensemble,
Excellency,
vous avez rendu cela
the
possible.
Archbishop, tonight the Notre-Dame de Paris is given back to you.
Vive Notre-Dame de Paris.
Thank you.
Vive la
Long
République.
live Notre-Dame of Paris. Long live the Republic. Long live France.